Hey, everybody. So we all know when I come on, I like to talk about books and reading and things that help you use your imagination and foster creativity and things like that. Unfortunately, today it's more business oriented than it is than fun because I wanted to point something out that may not be all that widely known. Back in the 80s and 90s, there were a lot of publishing companies. So you had this wide array of choices of books to pick from because each press had a slightly different focus, or they had people in it who would be more into sci-fi or fantasy or action adventure, comedy or drama or mystery, whatever, um, nonfiction. Mostly all the major publishing houses, the sort of medium to large ones, consolidated into five companies. So five companies make your decisions on what books get published if you go through a press. The smaller presses that are run by three, four, five people who just try to help authors get their stuff seen. We'll go through these small press distribution companies, and one in particular was called Small Press Distribution. They were not really book publishers. What they were the printers who would print the hardcovers, print the paperbacks, store them, and distribute them, either mostly through retail outlets. So this was somebody who was trying to get into Barnes and Noble, indie bookstores, retail outlets, because if you publish through Amazon, they're not really going to do that. But Amazon is uh, 74% of the book industry in all forms and sort of 50% for print books. But Amazon is not going to help you get into Barnes and Noble, indie bookstores, or other retail outlets like you see right here. Now, this particular small press distribution falling apart impacts 400 publishers that really relied on them to go distribute stuff. And the worst part is they fell apart when they owed a bunch of these companies money. So there's smaller presses out there that, $20,000 means the world to them, and that 20 some of that money would have flowed through to authors. And boom, they're gone, right? And somewhere in this article, let me see if I can find it. Yep, there it is. They owe money to a bunch of presses, sort of $8,000, $17,000, and now these smaller presses are just returning to GoFundMe to try to save their bacon. And a lot of work goes into putting out a book. Mine are indie done. I do everything from write to edit to, well, I have a co-author, but write to edit to cover art. It's just two people who do all that stuff. And I think we put out a pretty good product. Reviews are all averaging better than 4 stars, and we sell a bunch. So we're happy with our performance. But we're a little bit different in the way we do things. We're not ludicrously fast. So if you're much quicker as an author and you don't want to do layout and cover art and all those other stuff that goes into putting out a book, or you just don't have that skill set. I'm a technical person, so I kind of have that skill set, and my co-authors also got some technical background, so he's sort of the same way. We don't mind doing that. A lot of authors just it's not in their world, and there's nothing wrong with that. But these smaller companies would help with that. Now, what that means is if more of these groups go and die off, what we're going to be left with is a world where there's only really five big companies that you can go to, and those five big companies are run by five groups of people. And if you look at the books they're putting out, it's a more narrow band than it used to be. They don't necessarily want to, sort of spread out um, the number of titles or authors they're supporting. And it's interesting to me. I was looking for a copy of a book. It's interesting to me that even if you look at those major publishing houses, they're not fostering and building up new names. What I mean by that is if you look at like Tom Clancy, Robert Ludlum, and some of the greats who have passed on, um, they're still writing books, right? Tom Clancy got a new one coming out in a month or two. It's like book 25 in the Jack Ryan world, and he's been dead for years, right? So somebody else, and they put the other author's name, but somebody else is writing in Tom Clancy's voice. So we don't really get new stuff. We get additions to old stuff, which is good, but new voices as writers are not really coming to the surface as much as they did, because you're down to five, and getting in to see those five is very, very difficult. And as these smaller presses continue to go under, you're going to see it get even harder to get in there. So what you're going to see, I think, is a rise in the independent author, but it's always going to consolidate over to Amazon. So if Amazon decides to change the author deal, what's going to happen is you're going to find people have it even harder to make a living as a writer. You're going to find it much more difficult for indie authors to have the time to put into things to put out a quality product. So you're gonna be stuck with just five presses that are out there that produce the entire world. Is that the end of books as we know it? I hope not, right? We at least have all the ones we've had for, however long they've been putting out books. Those don't go away, but is there going to be that new voice? Is there going to be that new name unless it's carefully selected by somebody at one of those top five? I don't know, but it doesn't look good for the smaller publishing houses. In fact, it looks kind of worse every day. And I hope this does not lead to further consolidation in the industry, because consolidation means it's like Hollywood, right? They're down to sort of four big movie producers, and they all kind of all the movies. There's not really much differentiation in them, right? They've got a formula they go through, and that formula kind of works for them. But books for that area where you didn't get that formulaic stuff as much as you did, at least not back in the 80s and 90s. Now you kind of are starting to see this weird little formula. It's like, okay, if we do this and this and this and this, it's successful. Well, it's the same story, just rehashed. There's no room to venture out. So I don't know. Is this the end of publishing as we know it? Is this just further consolidation? And are we going to see a reawakening of it at some point? I don't know. We'll see where it goes. But I do think what this means is that the indie author is going to become even more important, and hopefully those indie author voices in their writing can actually reach a larger audience. Maybe there's something good can come out of it. But hopefully it's not the end. Everybody, if you have a great day, I do track this sort of news and I do talk about this stuff when it comes up. So if you are interested, click like, subscribe, follow whatever channel you find me on. I am always around. And if you want to come on and discuss it, drop a direct message. I try to answer as many as I can, and I'm happy to talk to just about anybody. Have a great day.